Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Good for the Soul. This is episode number 23. In this episode, I sat down with Chris Dealy, the owner-operator of the Base in Vancouver, Washington. So funny how the jiu-jitsu world and connections, cross paths and through social media, right? How it's all interconnected in a sense. So where I'm at now in Mandeville, Louisiana, filming these intros, a guy who visited here, Hunt Fish Jiu-Jitsu, you know who you are, my man. I saw Greg Lappin, he posted a picture, hey, Jiu-Jitsu bringing people together, right? So he's from Vancouver, was down here visiting, and happened to pop in because they were Checkmat affiliates, so they trained here, and I was like, man, oh, he's up in Vancouver. Oh, I'm about to leave Seattle and drive down that way. Let's get in touch. And so we were able to connect. I was like, hey man, I'm going to be in the area, the Portland, Vancouver area for about a week training. Can I come hang? And so then he put me in touch with the coach, with Chris himself, and we were able to sit down, talk jiu-jitsu, get some training in. So it was awesome. He's been competing for years, right? So he's one of those black belts that's been around for a long time. And congratulations to you, Chris. I just saw recently that you won a big tournament, so that was really exciting to see that hard work come together after years of training like we discussed. Your philosophy is awesome, and I really hope you guys get something out of this from listening to this episode. But before we jump into that, I just want to remind you guys to go to jockofuel.com to get 10% off on all the supplements, the protein shakes, the superfood greens, the supplements, everything you need. Type in Good for the Soul at checkout. Again, get yourself that 10% off. Take care of your body, all those aching joints. You want to get yourself in tip-top shape to be able to have the longest life on the mats that you can. And for my runners out there too, or anyone in any form of fitness, you're hard on your joints as we age, they start to deteriorate. Everything starts getting a little creaky. So get out there, jockofuel.com, 10% off, Good for the Soul at checkout. And without further ado, here we go with episode number 23 of Good for the Soul with Chris Dealy at the Vancouver Base, Washington. I really appreciate your time.
Of course.
Thank you very much. Let's start from the beginning. Where did your love for jiu-jitsu come from?
So I started out in high school doing wrestling.
Okay.
Right? So I wrestled in high school, and I just tried it, wanted to try it out, something different. I was always into like WWE and all these things, and I was like, oh, let's give this a try. Come to find out, it's completely not like that at all, right? And I was like, man, I'm just gonna try this. And I always liked to roughhouse, and so wrestling was kind of the move for me in high school, where I could kind of have an outlet where I could go roughhouse and not get in trouble for fighting and all that. So I started with that, and I had the team captain. His name's Marcos Gutierrez, and actually it's funny, he's a Jiu Jitsu Black belt now, trains now these days as well. But he was really he was the varsity guy in the weight class above, same weight class as me, and he was just really motivational. Something about his energy just made me love wrestling, and I ended up falling in love with wrestling and doing that. I ended up graduating high school and went to college at Clackamas Community College. Walked onto their wrestling team as well. Tried to wrestle there for a year. Didn't end up working out because the commute back and forth from Vancouver to Clackamas was just too much for me. Yeah. And I was young and undisciplined, and I just quit.
Yeah.
And I ended up transitioning over and thinking that I was going to start trying to do MMA. Right, because I was watching the UFCs at the time, back when Tito Ortiz was fighting. And
the TV was getting to you again.
Yeah, it was getting to me again, right? And I was like, oh, I'm gonna go try this. So I ended up signing up at Team Quest and doing all the training and stuff to try to be a fighter. And I just kind of found that the grappling side of it was what interested me even more so than the MMA. So I really gravitated towards the coach there at the time. His name was Robert Follis. May he rest in peace. And he really developed a love for grappling in me, and I started competing, doing more grappling than I was doing MMA. So I kind of transitioned away from wanting to be a fighter and just kind of saying, hey, I want to get good at this grappling thing.
Definitely.
And from there it kind of spawned into a little bit more than that, right? Because I was just how can I get really good at this, in this environment where everybody's just trying to be MMA fighters, right? And I started watching a lot of video, and I found an ABCC video where it was 2003, and I watched Marcelo Garcia go through this bracket, and I was just like, man, this guy's he's a legend. I'm gonna study and find out everything I can about this guy. I ended up finding a documentary where he was talking about how if you want to be a good grappler, you gotta train in the gi. And I went and bought a gi the next week.
So you hadn't owned one yet?
I hadn't owned one yet, right? And I was just training no gi. I was training, it was an MMA school. There was no gi program, right? And you come from a kind of a similar environment where like it didn't really have gi at the time, and now they have a gi program there. Kind of like how Ivan has a gi program at his school, and I ended up buying a gi and just kind of training on my own with my buddy John Ashworth and a few of the guys, Jesse trains up in there, my buddy Eagle, and there was, like I was living here in Vancouver, traveling all the way to Portland. There wasn't really much jiu-jitsu in Vancouver at the time, right? This is talking like 2006, 2007, and we were just kind of like training in the basement for a little bit, and then we had an opportunity from a friend that trained at Team Quest, and they opened up a school here, and John and I ended up becoming grappling instructors at the school, just teaching like no-gi grappling. But at the same time, I was training in gi jiu-jitsu. I ended up finding a school in Camas called Universal Jiu-Jitsu with Mel Locke, Professor Mel Locke, and I trained with him, earning my blue and purple belts through him under Professor Rylan Lazaris, who was like the head instructor basically for that program. And then, just kind of...
You've been on the path ever since?
Man, I've been on the path ever since. I've been loving jiu-jitsu ever since. I went and I competed at my first international major in 2009, the World Championships in 2009, lost my first match, but from that day is when I really just kind of, I said, this is what I want to do, right?
Wow.
I want to compete in jiu-jitsu, I want to get good at jiu-jitsu, I want to do this as much as I can. I want to, kind of live the lifestyle of jiu-jitsu, and I'd say that was the year, that was the event that really, like, I've been grappling for a long time.
That's interesting that it happened that late into it, where it really clicked in that moment.
And I mean, I started wrestling in like 99, 2000 in high school, and then all the way until like 2009, so probably a decade later of actually training, that I said, hey, this is what I want to.
What do you think it was that clicked for you?
I don't know. I think it's that I found a competitive outlet at the highest level that I felt like I could actually reach something new, right?
Yeah.
Come to find out that I've been doing a major. I've been competing in the majors every year since then, and I finally hit the podium at one last week. So 13 years of trying after that, right? So, man.
Yeah, that's how it goes sometimes. Well, congratulations on hitting that podium last week. That was pretty cool. Talk to me a little bit about that beginning stage of stepping on the wrestling mat for the first time, because I think like it could be similar to stepping on the jiu-jitsu mat for the first time. Were there mirrors? What was that experience like?
For me personally, I thought I was going to be way better than I ended up being, right? I was like, man, how hard can this be? I'm going to go and, I roughhouse with my boys, in the living room all the time, or on the trampoline. How hard can this be? And come to find out, man, it's like, these guys have been doing this for a long time, and you know nothing, right? You think you know something, but you don't know what you don't know. And I went in there and I was just getting my butt kicked every day, and like, I'm a naturally competitive person, and I was just like, man, I need to get good at this, right? And that was kind of like the driving force for me. I know, like, I felt the exact same thing when I went and started training at Team Quest. I was like, I know, I've been wrestling for 3 years. I'm gonna be just fine, right? Nope, got my butt kicked every day, first year, until I finally started learning some jiu-jitsu and, just being able to pick up on it. Same thing goes for the first time I put on one of these gis. Like I went to, cross train at a gym. I think it was New Breed at the time, and I went to like an open mat. I was like, man, I'm gonna go well, with these purple belts and brown belts, how good could they be? Well, they kicked my butt just the same, right? So there was like multiple times in my life I've come into these learning curves where it's like I think I'm gonna be right here, and nope, I'm right here, right? And same thing goes for like when I start training with like some of these black belts. It's like you think you're gonna be good enough, and then you need to learn the hard way.
Definitely.
As far as like just starting out though, I've never really had like that fear of I guess I don't know how to describe it, right? Like I've always felt like, hey, I can go do this,
you can do it, yeah.
And then I always get like that slap in the face saying, hey, you're not as good at this as you think you are, right? And
how did you overcome that, or were there any moments that you felt discouraged throughout those different transitions that you're describing?
As far as like overcoming it, I knew that if I stuck with it, I'd be good. I'd develop some skill set in it. I think that has to do with kind of like the upbringing I had. I was raised by my mom mostly, but like by her parents and my grandfather, and he just always kind of taught me that like no matter what you do, like just give it all your energy. Don't do it half-assed, and it's gonna pay off. So even if you're bad at it at first, right, if you stick with it, you're gonna develop some skill set. And a lot of people they quit because they're not good at it, right? And they're like, hey, this isn't made for me. Yeah. Well, if you don't give it enough attention, if you don't give it enough time, then it's not for you. Yeah. But if you do give it enough time and you just keep going, keep working, recognize things that you're bad at. Like, hey, I'm really bad at escaping side control, so maybe I need to put myself in side control as much as possible and keep working until I can figure this out. And a lot of people, they're like, oh, I'm bad at escaping side control, so I'm not gonna train in that position. I'm gonna stay away from it as much as I can. And that's the wrong mindset. You gotta the training room is for training, right? So you can put yourself in those bad positions in the training room, then you're gonna be able to overcome that, over time.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. As a coach now, I heard you talking earlier. You've owned this gym for 8 years now, which is amazing. It's a beautiful facility. When someone walks through the door for the first time and they are feeling nervous about jiu-jitsu, what's that conversation like for you now, having all the experience that you have, telling someone, hey, because I'm sure you come across many different reasons why people start. What's that conversation like for you?
Yeah, so I was talking to some people about it a little bit earlier too. I came from an environment where new people coming in were kind of like fodder, they were like food for these people. Like they didn't really care about if they stuck around or not, I guess. Whereas I try to develop a culture of like taking care of our white belts and making sure that they are cultivated, from day one. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times I make sure that they understand that they're in a safe environment. Right? We strive to integrate them into our program for the long run, mm-hmm. right? Not just for like, hey, I just want you here for the first couple months, right? No, I want you here for forever, right?
Yeah.
If you're training forever, that'd be my ideal scenario, right? Mm-hmm. So we have things in place like with our programming where if you come to a fundamentals class here, you're not going to see two white belts working together, right? You're going to see a blue belt working with a white belt, right? Or maybe you'll see like a 4-stripe white belt working with a white belt. Somebody that's been here for a good amount of time is going to work with that brand new person to make sure that they get a personalized experience, right? Like they get someone that's looking out for them, making sure that their safety is being looked out for. Because sometimes you just put two new people together and it can be like the blind leading the blind, right? Or you get like two guys that are like overly aggressive and they're just trying to see how hard they can do these techniques, or maybe they're here with the wrong kind of mindset, like, hey, I want to learn how to hurt people, or I want to learn how to break somebody's arm. And it's like, no, we got to make sure that we cultivate the mindset first, right? Mm-hmm. We're a team, we're a community. This is a academy of learning, more so than it is a fight club or even like a training. It is a training center for sure, but it's not just for that. It's for learning as well. And we try to cultivate that.
That's great.
With our beginners.
No, that's wonderful. If I remember correctly, you were saying if you started wrestling in '99, you basically had 10 years of grappling experience before you really started in the gi. Yeah. So, what through your gi transition, or do you remember a certain belt level that was the most difficult for you?
Purple belt, for sure.
Yeah. Why is that?
Because I had all this experience before I ever even put on the gi. So I got through, like, once I actually started training at a school, I went from white belt to blue belt in about 7 months.
Okay.
I went from blue belt to purple belt in about a year and 8 months.
Gotcha.
So I made it through those first 2 belts relatively quickly because I was like in the white belt and I would go compete in blue belt divisions and I would win, right? Or I was in the blue belt and I'd go compete in purple belt divisions and I would win. I'm like, man, I'm good enough to be a purple belt. And it's like, man, I really wish I could have just like stayed in those first 2 belts for a little bit longer and like really learned gi jiu-jitsu a little bit more, because once I got to the purple belt level, there was nobody that was bad, right? Like, and I like to compete a lot. So in my blue belt, purple belt years, I was competing 8 to 10 times a year, maybe more, and 8 to 10 tournaments a year, so multiple matches, doing super fights, like all these things, getting every match I could get. And when I was in the purple belt, I lost a lot. I don't know, just because I was like always trying to get the best matches possible. So I was always like I would see guys in the division, I'd be like, I could beat that guy, right? And it was more so like I was always comparing myself to other people. So I think probably my mindset was wrong. Instead of just like appreciating the time that I had to train to get better, right? Focusing on just getting better. I was focusing on like getting accolades and credentials, right? And building a resume as far as like being a competitor goes. And it really kind of hit me because I won a lot as purple belt too, don't get me wrong, but like I lost a lot as well, and it took a toll on me mentally, thinking like, oh man, maybe I'm not good enough to do this, right? Or maybe I'm not good enough to be like a competitor and to go and like win these big tournaments. And I was also going through a divorce at the time, my oldest child's mom, and I was like going through a lot of different stages of my life at that time. I had almost contemplated quitting jiu-jitsu itself, like in general, right? And I ended up, I'm glad I didn't, right? And kind of having like a change of scenery, a change of lifestyle, took another job, and like I changed things up a lot during that stage of my life. And thankfully for that, I was able to like, I ended up changing the jiu-jitsu team that I was with, and found a new lady who's now my wife, who I have 2 beautiful kids with, and I started looking at jiu-jitsu differently. Cool. Right? I wasn't looking at it as just like, okay, I'm just gonna try to like look at this as a sport, right? And I still do that, right? I still compete all the time, but I don't do so as the primary focus, right? My primary focus is my family first, my academy and my team, and then I compete in sport jiu-jitsu kind of like as like the 3rd tier of that, right? And I'm able to focus on it a little bit differently. Don't get me wrong, like I still am 100% all in when I do go compete and when I'm training to compete and stuff. But my expectations and the pressure I put on myself is different. Right? It's a different kind of pressure that I put on myself. I focus more on the training now and actually trying to be my best instead of just like wishing and hoping for these results and just desiring these things. I actually am just focused on doing the work to get these things, right?
Well, it's cool to hear that your evolution of grappling started with WWE, the no-gi, the fighting stuff, and how it's molded and changed over time for maybe a different appreciation of what grappling and jiu-jitsu actually is. So it's cool to see. Being a coach and owning your own school, what do you think is the biggest reason you see that people stop training jiu-jitsu?
I think maybe those expectations, right? They end up having expectations that they're going to come in and they're going to be able to, picked this up relatively quickly, and it's a very unforgiving hobby, very unforgiving activity to practice, and I think that's it. For the most part, like people come in like expecting that they're gonna, be able to come in and just do this right away, and it's just not the case. It's the closest thing I've found to life, in that it's very hard, right? And that, and then injury, right? People end up getting injuries, and the biggest thing I see is that people will get an injury and they will say, okay, I'm injured, I can't train anymore, right? Whereas those of us that have been on the mat for our entire lives, or those that like are continuously on the mat, we get an injury now, it's like, okay, I still show up every day. Like say I have like an injured elbow, I'm still gonna show up every day. I'm just not gonna use that. I'm not gonna use that elbow. Maybe I tuck that arm in, or maybe I don't pull with that arm, or I tap early. I find ways to keep myself safe if I have injuries. And I don't know what else. Life, letting life get in the way, right? A lot of times people they say, all right, I'm gonna go train jiu-jitsu this week, but then maybe work comes into play, and it's like, okay, your schedule changes, and now you're working a night shift instead of a day shift. So instead of training at night, they don't have that option anymore, and they say, okay, well, there's just no other option for me, because I'm not going to give up this to be able to keep training.
Right.
And I think if you put it into context and say, okay, this is important to me, I'm going to buy out a little bit of time every week, no matter what happens. I'm going to find a way to train 2 times a week, right? So if my schedule changes and I can only train during the daytime now, and I need to sleep at some point, do I train at a noon class, or do I train at early morning class, right? That would be my option. If I couldn't train during the day or night, guess what? I'm getting up at 5:45 in the morning. I'm gonna go hit the 6 a.m. class, and I'm gonna get my training in. But that's my mindset.
Right.
Right. A lot of people they don't put the priority on it.
Yeah.
Right? So.
For sure. Speaking of injuries, have there been any severe injuries that you dealt with over the years of grappling that made you stay off the mats, where you couldn't really get on and train through it? Like we know you have to at times, and how did you deal with those?
So when I was a blue belt, I got stacked on a triangle, and ended up getting a bulging disc between C6, C7, which is still reoccurring. I still have problems with that. I was actually initially off the mats for 6 months. Actually, I was out of sparring for 6 months, right? But I found a way to get back and start drilling and stuff. But that was a bad one. I've had some knee injuries, but never had to get surgery. Ones that have kept me off the mat for a few weeks at a time or whatever. But I always just find a way to get back on the mat.
Cool.
I think my neck injuries are the ones that have been the most debilitating, and the ones that I think okay, I'm gonna be 50 years old one day, and I'm just one nasty neck injury away from possibly being done.
Yeah.
So I always just try to keep myself as safe as possible, right? So if somebody's got me in a deep guillotine, tap.
Cool.
Or I find ways to not get put into that position, keep myself safe. I think that's probably the worst one.
Yeah, that's a good reminder in itself of hey, if you're getting in these positions for those who are starting training or whatever part of the journey you're on, it's hey, don't let that ego get in the way. Tap, be safe.
Exactly.
Your neck is more important than that round.
Yeah, especially in the training, right? A lot of people don't realize that, hey, this is not the competition mat, right? And a lot of people they don't compete in general, so they look at this as hey, I have to win.
Right.
And it's there's no such thing as winning in here. Winning is being able to come in here, train, go home without injury, and come back tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's winning in my eyes. Being able to train each week, is important to me, right? I got caught in a submission in this last tournament, and he had my foot deep, and then applied pressure on my knee, and I was just no, he has my foot stuck. I'm stuck, man. I have to tap. I need to be able to get back to my family and run my gym. And I'm not just a career competitor that I can't sacrifice my body to go compete, right? I have to be able to come back and run the gym.
No, that's wonderful. That's such great insight. I think that changing your definition of what winning actually is.
Yeah.
That's a great reminder, because I've let my ego get in the way in the past. It led to some injuries, right?
Yeah. I have it tested almost every week.
Yep. Again, with your many years grappling now, if you could change one thing about Jiu Jitsu, what would it be?
Man, there's a few things, but I don't know. What would I change? This is a great question. Something that would take some time.
Whether
I
it's
think, I think maybe because like I look at it in like a sporting context, and something that is like, okay, how do we market this to the world, and how do we make it to where it's like of the world? And honestly, I think just calling it Jiu Jitsu instead of like calling it Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, right, is a start. Because like if you look at judo in the Olympics, if you look at wrestling in the Olympics, it's not called Japanese judo, it's not called American wrestling, right? It's just wrestling, it's just judo. So you gotta start by kind of taking out the tribalism. Is that the word I'm looking for? I'm not sure. But kind of marketing it to the world, right? More so than just marketing it to just the people that do jiu-jitsu, right? If you, I think that would be the first thing to open it up to more people, right? I think that would be a start. But I don't really know. I don't know. That's something for me to ponder.
Yeah.
Maybe
cool.
get back to you.
Please do.
I'll post it in the comments.
Awesome. No, I appreciate it. And it is one I found I'm catching people off guard, because it's like, wow, I've been so entrenched in jiu-jitsu, I've never thought about, well, what would I ever change?
Yeah.
My answer goes to, I just want more of it. It's so fun. If I could share it with everyone and they could understand the feeling that I have when I train jiu-jitsu, that would be my thing. So
yeah, I think a lot of the change that I've wanted in jiu-jitsu, I've tried to implement here at my academy. Things kind of like that we're talking about, like the culture, how how it's marketed to beginners, and how beginners are treated, how people are treated. I try not to have like a lot of the politics and a lot of the old school ways, the traditional ways of jiu-jitsu, where you have to come in, you have to like bow to like a picture on the wall, or you have to shake the black belt's hand first, type of thing. It's like, no, we shake everybody's hand when we get on and off the mat and all that stuff. But try to kind of change that from within. I can only control what I do, right? I can't control like how the community runs their programs, or how they view jiu-jitsu, but I can control it within my walls. And I think that's part of why we've had a lot of success here. We have a lot of members of both age, gender, and skill set. And I think that goes to how our culture is.
So, lastly, and again, I really appreciate your time. Completely removed from jiu-jitsu, what do you do that's good for the soul?
Man, it's just spending time with my family, having that balance. I try. A lot of people like they give me crap because I don't hang out outside the gym. I don't throw big barbecues or go and hang out at everybody's houses and stuff. I try to hang out with my family at home. And it gives me that good balance to be able to get away. I actually just took the first vacation I've taken in a while, and that was nice as well. But I'll tune out, I'll play some video games. I try to not be all jiu-jitsu all the time, but it's hard when you own a gym, and when you're into the sport as well. It's hard to turn off. But having my family at home and being able to spend time with them. I have 3 kids, my wife, I have 2 dogs. Get some time in with them.
Cool.
I like to go eat.
Yeah, that's the best. Cool. Well, I'll let you get to that. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sitting down with me. Great class today. It means a lot. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Guys, if you've made it this far along, finished the interview, I just want to thank you again for supporting me along this journey, and hopefully you got something awesome out of that interview. I really enjoyed doing these, learning so much about life, jiu-jitsu, and everyone has such a unique and interesting perspective. So I hope you got something out of that that you can take with you. And one last reminder, for 10% off on any Jocko Fuel products or Origin USA products, go to jockofuel.com or originusa.com. Support yourself by getting some awesome products, supplements, protein shakes, greens, all that good stuff. It helps support me along this journey, and again, supports yourself and an American-made company. So yeah, jockofuel.com. Check it out, guys. Thank you very much.